Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Today's guest is someone who's been leading with purpose, vision, and a deep sense of service. Dr. Patrick Leahy, the president of Monmouth University. From a first-generation college student to now steering one of the top private universities in the country, Patrick's journey is full of grit, big pivots, and a real understanding that success never happens overnight, especially in higher ed. We're going to do a deep dive back to his early days, lessons he picked up along the way, and what it really takes to lead through change in a world that's evolving faster than ever. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. What a delight to be with you. Appreciate the invitation.
Oh, listen, I'm very excited. I mean, you know, it's a hometown university right near where I live that I go and frequent for games and courses and all sorts of things over the years. So it's exciting to have you on.
Where you've been recently recognized for your excellence in your field.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, it just makes me, I guess, old, right? Because if it's the myth of overnight success, then at that point I'm older at this point. But
it was not a lifetime achievement award, I promise you. Well, that was the top of your field award.
There you go. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was an amazing event as always. So, I'm excited to do this. It's just so much fun learning about people from when they first, are growing up to their whole journey. So like one of the first questions I want to ask you is, what were you like growing up? What would your parents and friends say about you as a young person?
Well, I grew up outside of Baltimore, Maryland, and I was the youngest of 6 kids, 4 older brothers and an older sister. So I think they would say, Jonathan, that they saw me as the responsible one among the 6. Now the others have all gone on to be, very successful in their own right, but they grew up in the 70s, and people had a lot of fun in the 70s, and as the youngest, I was always more interested in sports. So they were out, partying and doing their thing, and I always had a ball in my hand. And I was much more interested in that. So I think they would say, yeah, he was kind of the responsible one. But again, it's all relative, because as the youngest, I feel like I got away with things that the older ones never would have gotten away with.
Well, I mean, listen, I could even see, I only have 2, but I could understand what you mean. And I mean, with having 4 ahead of you, 5 ahead of you, that's a different story. So did you see yourself as a leader? I mean, that's an interesting way to define yourself, the responsible one. Because when you look at being young, I don't even think I had that word in my vocabulary early on, right? But I guess you saw how your family acted and it gave you some insights. But did you see yourself as a leader or not at that point?
I don't know if I saw myself as one, to be candid, growing up, Jonathan, but, as I think back on it, I mean, I was often the one who went around the neighborhood and collected all the kids to play, the wiffle ball game, or collected all the kids to go to the pool for the day or whatever. And then, when I got involved in organized sports, which I did at a very young age, I mean, I started playing everything at 7, I guess I'd like to think of myself, I was often the captain or whatever of the team. So I guess maybe I filled that role a little bit without, ambitioning at that point for it or anything. I just, it sort of came naturally because I was so invested in the things we were doing.
I find that interesting, psychologically, being the youngest probably feeling the most out of control in a household with a lot of people, you look to the outside to gain some of that stability, right? Which could have created a lot of your leadership skills as a younger person. It's amazing how we don't look back and always see that. But like
Yeah.
I'm 80 podcasts in now, and it's
Wow.
a lot of the definitions of that person came from these little teeny things when they were younger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sister and I, the only girl in the family, she and I are just a year apart. So we were peers growing up. But then my next oldest brother was 5 years older, then 7 years older, 9 and 11 years older. So we're a close family. I learned a ton from them throughout the years, Jonathan, but I didn't really grow up with them. You know what I mean? I grew up with my sister. She had different interests than I did. So yeah, I had to go outside looking for, the friends and the people that I hung around with. But it still was a great family situation. I was very blessed. My parents were married for 56 years, and we had a great supportive household. I mean, the older I get, the more privileged I realize my upbringing was. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Well,
Great family and totally supportive, and very committed to education, and made sure we all had really good in our family, Catholic education growing up as Irish Catholics. So you don't appreciate it so much at the time, at least I didn't, but over time, as I'm raising my own family, I really think back on what a privileged situation I had.
well, that's why there's the word wisdom, right? Because we
Yeah,
normally are
exactly.
taking things for granted, and like reflection's amazing. So is there anyone, as you got older, almost to the entering the college part of your journey, that had an impact on you? Or were there any events that drove you, whether it was a failure or something that didn't go the right way, that you think molded you into that next level of your life?
Well, I always think back in particular on influences in my life beyond the great influence my parents were, my older
Yeah.
brothers and my sister. But I went to the Jesuit Catholic high school in Baltimore, Loyola, and my senior year, Jonathan, one of my football coaches, who at the time was studying to become a Jesuit, he wasn't or hadn't been ordained yet, but he was
Yeah.
studying. Really good guy, totally, totally regular guy. He came to me and he said, "Have you ever thought about applying to Georgetown?" And I said, "Never even crossed my mind." And he said, "Why is that?" I said, "There's no way I can get into Georgetown." And he said, "No, no, no, no." He had gone to Georgetown. He's like, "No, no, no. You're just what Georgetown's looking for. They just need the right people you need the right people to advocate for you and everything else." And it was he who I always joke single-handedly got me into Georgetown. And that really shaped my life for my entire career. Not only did it help me professionally, but I met my wife there. We just celebrated 30 years together. My closest
Wow.
friends in my life, I made there. I had a full college experience, and it was uniquely, I think, in large part because this person interceded in my life and suggested that I apply, and then, let's be honest, sort of shepherded my application through to the point where I was accepted, and so that was the first really big influence on my life outside the family.
I love it. I again, this podcast and just talking to so many great people in different industries, different parts of life. It was always that person that tapped them on the shoulder or gave them some guidance out of nowhere of things that we limit ourselves on not believing in
Yeah,
ourselves enough. And listen, it goes all the way to our careers now.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I have days where I need that person. Like I want to surround myself with people that believe in me, because I do believe the number one thing of success, no matter what, because it's never how we think, when we think, or why we think, is belief.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when you believe, things happen, and having people around that help you become more of what you are and what you believe is
Yeah.
an amazing thing. So you went to Georgetown. I went to Syracuse. We had a little rivalry there.
It's okay. We can still be friends.
I was 1987, 6. That was like Pearl and
Oh yeah.
Cycling and
Yeah. We had some good
Coleman, and
games. Some good
that's when
games.
Ewing. That's when it was wild back then. So, obviously you're very into sports. Where did this education thing come in? And obviously, it's an unbelievable field to go into. But how did you, gain that ability in your head to think that's a direction even?
Well, interesting. Thank you for asking that because I do get that question a lot. Like, did you always want to be a university president? Because most people will claim that they fall into the job. Like they wanted to teach, they wanted to do research, and then they were dragged into administration, and then one thing led to another, and then these, you know, sort of uninterested folks feel like they're serving their institution by taking the top job, sort of against their will. That's sort of the sort of standard thing. I always say, to be honest, when I was a student at Georgetown, I had the great privilege. That same person who first introduced me to Georgetown, Jonathan, called me the summer before I started, and he said, "Hey, I just heard that the president of the university is going to teach a freshman poetry class. Do you want to take it?" And I was like, "With the president of the university? That would be really cool." Yeah.
Yeah,
So
totally.
he said, look when you get to campus and you start registering for classes, look under the name Bickerstaff, Monday and Thursday. And I said, Bickerstaff? I thought his name was Healy. And he said, well, it is. His name is Tim Healy, but he doesn't put his own name in the registry,
Oh, that's
or else
interesting.
everybody would want to take it. So he goes under a pseudonym. And I think that was maybe a teacher character in a Dickens novel or something. And I got tipped off, and I took it, and that was another great influence in my life. I had the great privilege of getting to know personally Tim Healy, who was the most learned man I'd ever met in my life. And I always tell the story that I enrolled at Georgetown in the business school because I figured I would work, in a more traditional business job. Everyone in my family, from my dad on down, are business guys.
Yeah.
And I took that one class, and it changed my life forever because that winter break, I went home and broke it to my family that I wanted to transfer from the business school to the College of Arts and Sciences, from a marketing major to an English literature major. You can imagine I had some explaining to do to my dad in particular.
Well,
It was
yeah,
like,
because at the
what
end
do
of
you
the
want to do with
day,
that?
and there's many things you can do, and
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in the arts and sciences because
Yeah.
I mentor so many young people. I so enjoyed. I learn more from them than I think I help them. But like, I don't think we ever really know what, unless you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or
Yeah.
maybe even an engineer. All the other stuff that makes the world go round. You don't really know until you try it, right? I
That's
always say
right.
the first 10 years of your career are finding out what you don't want to do, right?
Exactly.
And if you look at people that graduate college, and we could talk a little bit about this more later, they don't end up where they really focused anyway. So, and not I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I think that's just shows you that we don't really know. So good for you. Again, this
So,
person, who's this person? This person keeps guiding you. It's like an angel.
I know it. And then just to complete that thought, I got to know the president of Georgetown University. I actually used to drive him to the airport. Like I was we can talk about this too. I was a rower.
Okay.
The first time in my life I competed in something that didn't include a ball, you know. But
Exactly.
he really liked the rowers because he thought that we outworked everybody else on the campus because we were up at 5 in the morning and running
Yeah.
down to the river. Anyway, he used to ask the rowers to drive him to the airport and stuff. So not only did I have class with him, and he invited me to collect a bunch of people and go out to dinner numerous times. I used to drive him to the airport. I really got to know him, and I got to understand what he did in his job. And at that moment, Jonathan, I said, being the president of a university, that would be a cool job.
Wow, good for you.
So we can talk about this circuitous route it took me to get there, but that was the first, as a student, is when I first started thinking, you know what, that would be a cool way to spend the one life I have to live,
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I listen. Having dreams is so important, and no matter what, whether you say you want to be the president of a university or not, you can't step out of school and be the
and
president of
do
a
it.
university. So, but like again, that's what dreams are about, and that's what goals are, and that's what ambition is. And so I know you graduated. I think you did some finance stuff
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while. So talk about, like, you get out, or you have this dream, which most people aren't really clear on their dream. What made you take those few steps? And then I
Yeah,
know you ended up in other
yeah.
universities we can talk about for a few moments, and then we can move on.
Well, whenever I have a chance to counsel students, I tell them my story, because I think there's one key lesson in it, and it's this: that my first job out of Georgetown, I actually worked at Georgetown for a year in development, just to
Okay.
test out, to your point, like, is this really a field that I'd be interested in?
Yeah.
And I was, but I had influences in my life, in particular, my dad, my brothers, and others, who are like, what are you doing? You could kill it, if you worked in business, or if you worked in sales, if you worked in finance. And so I sort of let those influences, let them whisper in my ear that, you know what, I should be working in business. And so I went and got a job as a sales rep at a Fortune 500 company. I did not like it, decided to do my MBA, in part because I had done the literature degree as an undergrad. I still felt like I could, no matter what I ended up doing, I could stand to benefit from learning accounting and finance and economics and marketing, et cetera. So I did my MBA. But even then, I was like, you know what? I think I might transition and work in the business of education. And then I got this opportunity with a venture capital firm, and I had classmates saying, "What are you doing?" I'd give my right arm to go work in a venture firm. We're all trying to get that job, and you got it. What are you doing? So I was like, I guess I better take it anyway. So I took it, and I didn't love it. It just wasn't me. And then I found my way. First, I started a business in education. So I'm leaving finance, and I'm trying to migrate to education by starting a business, which, to be quite candid, Jonathan, failed. I'd like to think we were on the leading edge of a technology. We were ahead of the technology at the time. Now it would be easy to do what we tried to do 25 years ago.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
time, it was really hard. And I always say, you know what? That's a great thing that business died, because had it bounced along, I would not have made the sharp break to work in university administration, and then my career took off from there. So I
So
always
what
say
you're
to
saying, so
students,
everyone learns this lesson, because
yeah,
good is bad and bad is good. It's how you look at something that's happening to you. And I love the fact, and when I was young, I wanted to be in entertainment. I loved entertainment, whether it was Broadway or whatever it was. I did
hmm,
that when I was in high school or middle
I,
school, and I loved it. And
I can see that.
my
Yeah,
father told me, like, you're not going to make any money, like,
yeah,
so.
yeah,
But again, that's probably why I have a podcast now. So you never give up, right?
yeah,
Because you can always do, maybe not in your full career, you can always do it in other ways. But I think that's one of the greatest lessons you just gave everyone, is that, like, but you try it, at least you tried, didn't like
yeah.
it, but you didn't sit there and not be your own person, right?
Yeah,
Like being your
I
own person.
you're right. It just didn't feel right. I mean, sometimes I think to myself, what was I thinking? I should have just gutted it out in finance. My gosh, I could be retired now. You know what I mean?
But then what? So then what do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have?
exactly. I love what I do. That's why I say the best thing that happened was, you
Yeah.
know, that it failed and people are like, "What?" I said, "I just wouldn't have gotten it would have taken me longer maybe to get into the field that I really wanted to get into."
100%.
And I'll say this, Jonathan, I look back now, you know, the old Steve Jobs gave that great commencement address where he said, "You can never connect the dots in advance. You can only connect them looking back." I look back and I think, I can't imagine being the president of a university today with all of the, challenges that American higher education is facing had I not learned how to sell in that Fortune 500 company, understood balance sheets and financial statements and finance, working in venture capital, the things I learned in business school, even the entrepreneurial things that I learned trying to get a business off the ground. All those skills I use daily in the job that I'm in now. So I sometimes think
So there's
I'm the
never an
lucky
end.
one.
There's only a beginning, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like everything you do, like we serves us in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly right.
If
You're
you
right.
allow your brain to understand, there's no rush, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone wants to get somewhere and be something, and then what, right? But and I'm not
exactly.
saying that in our society the way it works, you need to. You got to make money and do
Yeah,
what you got to
yeah,
do. But
yeah.
we're only here so long, so just know that everything you go through, and mostly the stuff that doesn't work out, I find are always the biggest lessons that have catapulted me, right? Because I would, so in that, what was your biggest, say, challenge? Obviously you took on now the university president of, what was the first one?
Wilkes University, which is in northeastern Pennsylvania, downtown Wilkes-Barre,
Right. So that
5,000 student institution.
so you got in, you finally got your dream to at least be on the journey of that dream, and you got in, and what was the biggest
Yeah.
challenges you had now running something that was your dream?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is I really thought I was prepared, even though I was very lucky in that I got the job at a young age. Again, for my industry,
Right.
maybe running an organization, $200 million organization, at 43, and a lot of a lot of industries is no big deal. But in higher ed, I was one of the younger presidents. In fact, I think at the time I was the youngest in the state of Pennsylvania, anyway. And I thought I was prepared, Jonathan, because at the University of Scranton, where I started working in higher ed, I spent 8 years in 3 different jobs. I was a very, very close confidant of the president at that university. Another person, incidentally, who gave me opportunities that I probably did not deserve. And he saw potential in me that I'm not
Yeah.
even sure I saw, or belief in me that I didn't have. And I thought, you know what? He has hardly made a decision without my input. I'm ready for this. And then I go become the president of, a medium-sized university, and it dawns on me that there is a huge difference between being an advisor to the president and being the president.
Yes.
You know what I mean? What do they say? It's
Absolutely.
like on a basketball bench, it's like that foot between the head coach and the associate head coach is a chasm,
It's
because
daunting. It's daunting.
you can advise all you want, but sooner or later somebody has to decide. So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for me at that point was, wow, like I was so used to laying out the different alternatives and making my suggestion and then walking away happily without worrying about what happened. The difference between that and collecting all that feedback from folks, and then finally and feedback that seems like very reasonable. Like I could see how making this decision would be very reasonable. I could see how making a different decision, but sooner or later, the decision maker has to decide. And that was the biggest adjustment for me. Like, well, wait a minute, you need me now to decide definitively what we're going to do. Yes. And the
You're gonna
sooner
have
the better.
yeah, and
Okay.
you're gonna have to live with those. And again, whether some were good and some were bad,
Yeah.
you have to own it, right? And
Yeah.
own it.
Yeah. And higher ed is a field that really not really demands, let's put it that way, demands collaboration. I mean, there's so many constituencies
Yeah.
at a university, and I think that the better decision makers take the time to solicit input. Doesn't mean you're going to do what one particular person says, but there's a real emphasis, of course, on collaboration and seeking that input. And it's almost like process justice. I mean, it's like, I need a chance to weigh in. Great. Give me your opinion. Now that you have, I'll decide how much it influences the final decision. But I think most of the time, people around a university just want a chance to weigh in. You know what I mean? And then I make a decision, and then I feel like I owe it to them to explain why I made the decision. And that's more me than if I were maybe running a corporation and I just had to make all these decisions. It's kind of comes more naturally to me to collect a bunch of people
Well, I
and
think any good leader all
let
year
them hash it
long
out.
is, like if you're a good leader, you're always trying to find out what everyone else thinks. Like, what do your customers think? What do the people in that division think? What are they missing? What do they not have? It's like servant leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
I think is what you're talking about if you want to put a
I
definition.
think you're right. Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
that's an unbelievable way to lead because, again, you'll have to make the final decision, but it's nice to hear, or, sometimes we have blind spots that we don't
Absolutely.
exactly see something the way someone else might. And,
Yeah,
if you look at, again, you brought up Steve Jobs, he was, he had huddle meetings. And,
yeah,
if you look even how a lot of these other big CEOs with large companies operate, it's all about trying to find out, how to serve whatever the mission is. So it's good.
exactly.
It's good. So,
Exactly.
all right. So you were at that college and you went to another university, right?
Yeah.
And,
Well, I
I,
was at Scranton and then Wilkes and
right,
then Wilkes to Monmouth. Yep.
right. And all through that, you saw all the skills that you learned, however long you learned them, added to it. Because when you look at these universities or even health systems, or it's money and capital, it's facilities. Obviously, I'm in real estate, right? So, what were the biggest challenges? And now, like, say we're at Monmouth today. You took over day one. You had all of the training from these other great universities. You learned your style. What were your biggest challenges in your brain coming into Monmouth? And, how did you go about, talking about those challenges to bring the team together?
Yeah.
Because again, if there's so many people needing to be heard, how do you get that message through?
So I started in the summer of 2019,
Yeah.
and I spent 6 months just sort of listening and see what I could learn and developing those relationships. And then in January, Jonathan, I often do a kind of a mid-year convocation where I have a chance to speak to the entire campus community. Well, not the students, but faculty and staff and administrators. I gather them all together to talk about where we are, where we're going. And at that time, that was January or February of 2020, I said the great threat to Monmouth University in the coming decade is going to be the changing and declining demographics. There's just going to be fewer students interested in going to college in the next 10 years. We better be prepared for that. Never one time did I utter the word COVID-19. And then 4 weeks later, we're shutting the place down and, we're trying to figure out how we're going to stay afloat and, the whole thing. So I
So
had
hard.
a really interesting first 2 years here, like everybody. I'm not saying it was unique to me, but the first 2 years here were a
It
real
was unique to
grind.
everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
like no one had to deal with that. There was no
Uh,
playbook for that. It
yeah,
was
exactly. And when you don't have a playbook, you just sort of fall back on your personal, professional, institutional values, and ours was we're going to do everything we can do to serve our students and protect our people in the process. We didn't. I'm still very proud of the fact that at one point we furloughed 185 people,
wow.
but we made a commitment to them, Jonathan, that we will bring every one of you back when time allows. And to be honest, the government had such generous, leave packages that
Yeah,
some of our 185 employees made more money
yeah, yeah,
during that 5-month period than if they had stayed working. And then we brought them all. We were able to bring them all back and weather that storm. I mean, Monmouth University is in great financial shape, especially compared to other, middle market private institutions across this country. I mean, we are the envy of most private institutions, mostly because we don't have any long-term debt.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so it's really unique. So we were able to weather that, I think, in a way that a lot of other institutions could not or are still dealing with, trying to figure out how to keep digging their way out of that. So, I mean, that was really hard, and it really put a premium on communication, as you're suggesting. And I started doing these open calls via Zoom. And I offered an open call during the throes of the pandemic. And I just said, look, I want to gather the campus community together so we can feel connected. And I'll give you the latest. And we had a Zoom subscription at the time that only allowed like 200 people.
Yeah.
Well, in 2 minutes, like people you couldn't get in, so we had to stop. We had to expand it to 1,000 people, and like 800 people in our community would show up on these calls. It's just so I could share what was going on and try to just keep people together and frankly take their questions. I'm still doing them because the campus community got so accustomed to them that every time I suggest, like maybe these have run its course, they're like, no, no, whatever you do, don't stop the open calls.
Well, I think people want to feel close to what's going on and
Yeah,
who's making those decisions
yeah,
and
yeah,
energy. Like
yeah.
people want to be around the energy of why things are happening. And
Yes, I think you're right.
I think, with the tools that we have today, because I'm in YPO and
Yeah,
our education was in person. Just everyone's was,
yeah,
right? So we
yeah,
would have
sure it
50
was.
events a year. Same thing out with me. I said, I'm not going to allow this to not have what we've always had. We'll do it on Zoom. And we got our first license. And,
Yeah,
it was, we were sharing with other chapters. So
yeah,
we would have maybe 100 or 200 people at an event. There was like 600 people on these events and interviews. And candidly, I think that's why I ended up starting my podcast because I enjoyed it so much
yeah.
that I wanted to keep it going, even though it was a different way.
And now
But
you're 80 into it.
I'm 80. I'm
Yeah.
80 into it. I'm loving it. So, okay, so you got through COVID, and I'm just going to go over a few things that you've done so many amazing things. You launched this $175 million excellence access ambition campaign. You're chairing the Bruce Springsteen Archives. You have the film and TV production, right, where you do the partnering to enhance the students' learning. I'm going to keep going because I'm doing this on purpose. You did the partnership with Hackensack Meridian.
Yeah,
You did
yeah,
the CAA to TV coverage for the sports to make Monmouth a thing, right? Like I go
yeah.
to the games. It's a whole new feeling. So you get in, you got COVID. You're not there that many years. You did all these things. So the first question is, what didn't go the way you thought? And were there days where you're like, what am I doing? Why did I go that way? And what was that in your mind that got you through those situations, whatever they are?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge for us has been protecting our top line. I mean, we would love to continue to grow as a university. I mean, I'm talking financially grow our scale. The larger we are, the more positive impact we think we can have, not only for our students, but for the community in which
Yeah.
that hosts us. And that top line is under threat. I mean, just with the declining enrollment. And so we've tried some things. We tried some marketing things that didn't really pay off. We enlisted some enrollment partners, who are experts in their field. It didn't really pay off. I mean, our enrollment is not flagging. It's sort of staying steady, and graduate enrollment is actually decreasing some, but that's true of most colleges and universities across the country. And it's a small part of our total revenue mix. But our undergraduate, is fairly steady, but we just having trouble sort of finding those additional resources. One of the reasons we launched a major campaign, which we would have done anyway, but that campaign's helping to build things here. It's not helping to necessarily, improve our long-term financial
Right,
picture.
but
I
if you
mean,
look at the campus, it's amazing. I mean, the build. First
thank
of all,
you.
you have the most iconic
Yeah.
hall that you possibly could have. But what made you go in these directions? From Springsteen obviously is from down here. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
You'll talk a little bit about that. But you went film, you went
Yeah.
healthcare,
Yeah. So,
you went data driven.
yeah,
You did go into the areas that, and who knew that Netflix was
we
going to be here as
exactly.
well.
So, I mean, there's I appreciate your nice comments, but there's really not much genius here for this reason. We want to build a healthcare juggernaut here. Why? Because we know that the jobs that our community needs in the future are going to be the health care related jobs, nursing, occupational therapy. We started physician's assistant. We started. There's others on the drawing board. We have speech language pathology. We need to create those jobs that our community needs, and it's good for our students because they're guaranteed employment pretty much for life.
Yeah.
If they go through these programs, they're hard to run because they're highly accredited for good reason. I mean, we're talking about preparing people who are going to deal with people's health. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's deserving of a rigorous accreditation. So
Absolutely.
we wanted to do that. We have this great partnership with Hackensack Meridian that's going to allow us to take those programs to the next level. We're continuing to develop our television, film, and production. Why? Because, as you said, who knew that Netflix was going to build the
Oh, I
largest?
think you stepped into a big one here.
Oh
I
my God!
mean, like
I mean, I
like
had no idea of that, of course, when I took the job
but so
6 years
okay, but
ago.
then what made you go there? That what I'm totally getting the healthcare thing.
Yep.
I'm totally getting the sports thing that you
Okay.
did.
Yeah, I'll say just a quick thing about that in a minute, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so the film and television, we want to take advantage of the fact that Netflix is building the largest television and film production studio. I had a chance to meet Ted Sarandos, the CEO, and I said how thrilled we were that you're building the largest one on the East Coast. He said, no, 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 no. We're building the largest film and television studio in the country, and it's
Yes.
going to be 2 miles from our campus. So of course we want to be positioned properly. We are already one of the nation's leading music industry programs. I mean,
Yeah.
Billboard Magazine, it's not my assessment, Jonathan. Billboard Magazine every year looks at music business schools.
Yeah.
Syracuse is on that list, I'll have you
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
the schools you want on that list, and not everybody has the program. I get that. But the schools on that list, USC, UCLA, NYU, Syracuse, I want to be on that list,
Yeah.
you know. So we're already really strong in that area. And that's going to go to a whole nother level with the Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. So it's not a great extension for us to say we could be really great in television and film. So those are the academic programs we're trying to position ourselves. But let me say a quick word, if I may, about athletics. So we are a Division I program. We're what they call mid-major. So we're not one of the high major that overdoes it in athletics, but athletics is important to us. we were in a conference that just played in greater New York, basically New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Fine, it cut down on travel. I appreciate that, but didn't get us any exposure unless we played non-conference games against
Yeah.
schools out of it. So we fought like the Dickens to get an invitation to this Coastal Athletic Association, which would allow us to play up and down the East Coast and elevate our athletics to a much better league. Everyone says it's a better league. Get exposure in key recruiting markets for Monmouth University, because what we want to do is take this jewel that we think is too hidden and unhide it, if you will.
100%.
So we
Yeah.
want to go up and down the East Coast. And so we get to now play in Boston and in New York and on Long Island and in Philly and Baltimore, DC, I mean, Virginia. I mean, those are great markets for us. The old conference, we were on television 2 times in our last year. This past year, we were on television 70 times. Okay, so unbelievable exposure for us. But that's not even the main reason I wanted to join the CAA, Jonathan. All of that is not the main reason. The main reason we wanted to join the CAA is to associate with institutions that we consider to be bona fide super regional, if not national institutions. Northeastern, Drexel, Stony Brook, William and Mary, Elon, College of Charleston. I mean, those are the kind of institutions we want to be associated with. I mean, we're not William and Mary yet. We're not Northeastern yet in terms of our, our outcomes and our selectivity. But, one way to get there is associate with them. You know what I mean?
I think it's
And
brilliant. I
so
do.
that's why we made that move.
I love it. I love it. And before we get to the Springsteen thing, what's so interesting, because I'm looking at all this and listening to you, and it's like, with college, it's so important in the future. And I'd like to hear your take on this with AI and just the things I know I can do with it already that, are going to take away jobs, right? To be able to go to a college and spend the money and know that you're in an industry that at least you can prosper in and make your living while you're trying to figure everything out, right? Because you still got to pay bills. It seems like that's where you headed, and you got ahead of it a little bit, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're go ahead.
yeah. So your thoughts on, like, what else do you think with AI going to be playing such a role? And I worry about it because it's entry level jobs.
Yeah, entry level. Yeah.
So, like, what else can universities do? What other industries? What do you think are the important things
Yeah.
for young people to know and learn to actually be able to survive to thrive? Right? Like, it's just you
Yeah.
get out and survive to thrive.
I mean, there's so much here. I mean, and I can't claim to be an expert in it because we're mounting an effort here around Monmouth as a community to try to figure out what is the influence AI is going to have on our university, both in the classroom and, administratively. And
Yeah.
we're still working through it. Some people have jumped to the conclusion that this is the end of, knowledge as we know it. I sometimes think, well, didn't they say that when the calculator was first introduced? At first, math professors were like, do not bring that calculator into my classroom. I'm going to teach you how to add and subtract and multiply and divide. Then they started getting accustomed to it and said, wait a second, what we can ask our students to compute, if you will, has just gone to a whole nother level with this tool called the calculator, and then a few years later, it was like the internet. Don't you dare log on to the internet and find information. I'm here to teach you through books and through traditional learning. Then I think we all got so accustomed to this ubiquitous thing that's like, how do we use the internet to enhance the work that we can get out of our students and how we can make them productive? I hope AI is another iteration of that. Instead of saying we got to keep AI out of the classroom, I hope we're trending toward how do we use this tool that is here whether we like it or not. I mean, you can argue whether you like it or not, but it's a tool that's here. It's not going anywhere. To me, it's incumbent upon us to incorporate that into our learning the way we did these other innovations, and maybe press our students to ask better questions than they've asked before. You know what I mean? You still have to query Chat GPT, right? Maybe we have to force our students to ask better questions and to integrate information even more fully than they've had to
Well,
do
I
in the
think the
past,
most
right?
successful people I know ask the best questions, and they
Yeah,
never
yeah.
stop asking questions. And
And
at the end of the day, if you look at how these things work, that's right now how they work.
yeah,
I listen. If everyone would embrace it and learn about it, you're always in fear until you take a couple steps into
yes,
that
yeah, yeah.
direction, right?
And,
Like don't just say it's there or it's going to take it over. Like learn about it, take some
and
courses on it. I
yeah,
do. What I mean,
yeah,
YouTube's the greatest thing today for learning. Stuff you want to learn outside what
exactly.
you're being taught where you are,
Yeah,
and become an expert at it. Listen, most of the jobs that we had were things no one wanted to do
exactly.
when you got out.
Exactly.
Like so now that you know that maybe if I bring the AI experience with me as a young person and I can teach the people that don't want to do what they're doing now, maybe they can do it a different way.
Yeah.
I think
I,
you could have magic here, but it's going
I,
to take everyone to, and listen, it's not going to be perfect.
yeah.
Look at any revolution; it always took time to train, to
Yeah.
train up. Like there
To
was always a
settle.
little bit of
Yeah.
a void before there was more jobs.
Yeah.
You look at the internet. Look, it created the largest companies in the world. So, and they all
And
started from scratch. So,
and I
like everyone has a chance in my mind.
one of the things that as a leader of this organization, want to try to press is, as you might imagine, sometimes our students are way out ahead of us on this. You know, maybe they've been using AI for the last year or two, and the dust ups always occur. Are they using it to do assignments, and the professors don't know about it? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? We have to make sure that we create the culture here of openness, as you just point out, openness and a willingness to learn ourselves. I'm talking about
Yes,
myself and my
yes,
team and our faculty, because the students are way ahead of us. Now, we can learn a ton from them, as you said you do when you sit down with students. But remember, they're paying us to impart that wisdom on them across a whole variety of things. So I just hope we embrace a willingness to change and continue to develop. And I get it. It's terrifying for a faculty member who was trained a certain way 25 years ago and has been teaching and doing research a certain way his or her whole career to have to make that change. But what choice do we have, Jonathan? I mean, I will say, just to complete the thought on this is where I believe there should be an increased premium on being well educated. Not AI is going to replace, the need to go to college. We need to develop very critical thinkers. We need to develop students who can use AI, but to integrate things across disciplines. We need people who can communicate their ideas effectively. You know what a detriment that is to the brightest person you can imagine if that person cannot effectively communicate their ideas, advocate for them, be open to adjusting them based on other people. I was with the CEO when I taught at Scranton. I was with the CEO of a huge insurance company who became a good friend. And what he said 15 years ago, I think is relevant today. I said to him, one piece of advice would you give our students today? All the things you can offer. Is there one piece of advice? And you know what he said to me? He said, be the kind of person that other people want to work with. I said, of all the things that you could say, what is that? He goes, I can't tell you how self-destructive it is for people who get into the workplace and they're not easy to work with. They're not collaborators. They take credit for things that they shouldn't take credit for. They rely on others to do the work that they should. You know what I mean? And I said, "Wow, I didn't expect that." But I think that's a premium
Well,
that
I think
will
it's
be
going to
the
be a
case in the
skill,
future, and we can teach that.
100%.
We can
It's
teach
going to
that at a
be
university. You know,
emotional and social intelligence skills should
exactly.
be a course now. I mean, like, there's so many things that the younger people won't have to be wasting their time doing anymore, that you can expand whatever. You can expand all of our skills in different ways, having more AI courses, learning how to use it. If you look at, when the internet started, I think we're like, hello, you've got mail. I like now it's all the
Yeah.
infrastructure being built. It's like when
The-
Qualcomm, it's like we're in the infrastructure phase. Don't be afraid. Get ahead of it and start learning
uh,
what's going on.
uh,
I'm doing it. Anyone can do it if I can do it, right? So,
I feel the same way. I just bought a car yesterday on this device. Literally. I'm doing the DocuSign. I'm checking out. I want that one, and then I'm
yeah,
doing the
yeah, yeah.
DocuSign. I just have to go pick it up.
I love it. So it sounds like I love it. You got the energy of what the future is going to be, and it's fun to think about the future.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what would you say? You know, Looking into the future, obviously, you have what you have going on now. Are some important things that are your personal goals to get done?
Well, professionally, my biggest personal goal is to delight the world with the grand opening of the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music building, which I hope will be within 1 year from now.
Wow, amazing.
I mean, Jonathan, this is like one of the great things, one of the reasons I came to Monmouth. I mean, I always say in my field, again, it's
Right,
not for everyone, but in my field, to be the president of Monmouth University would be privilege enough. I mean,
right.
that was my goal. I told you 30
Yeah,
years ago, I wanted to be the
yeah,
president of the university.
yeah.
To be the president of Monmouth University and the chair of the board of the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music, when we are getting that project from basically inception to
It's amazing.
establishment, it's just next level altogether. And I always reiterate what the executive director of our center said, and he's a bona fide expert in the field. He's done this a whole bunch of times. He basically said what Washington, D.C. could do, which is build on the mall a center that celebrates the history of American music. We're going to do right here on the campus of Monmouth University in central New Jersey. It's going to be that big a deal.
It's icon. It's like the Hall of Fame, wherever that. It's
It's
iconic.
it's
Iconic.
fantastic. And Bruce Springsteen said, I don't think he would mind me saying, I he said it to my predecessor when we first hatched the idea, and he's since repeated it to me. He said, "Look, the only reason I'm doing this with you guys is because you promised me that we were going to make this about the celebration of American music in all of its forms. He said, I don't need a presidential library. He's like, I am one chapter in an ever unfolding story of American music, one of our great exports worldwide, if you think about it. Bruce Springsteen sells as many tickets in Italy and in Europe and
Oh
in
yeah,
Australia
it's
as he does
unbelievable.
here.
Yes, exactly.
And he said it, and that wasn't false modesty. That was genuine modesty on his part to say, I'm hopefully an important chapter in the story, but I'm only a chapter in a story. You have to commit to me. He said this to me in my conference room. You have to commit to me that this is going to be a celebration of American music in all of its forms. Well, when that happened, this thing took on a whole different level. And it'll be personally gratifying for me because we had to raise the money. We've got it all. We have one more ask out. If we get that ask, we've 100% raised the funds from third-party donors. It's a self-supporting function already, let alone when it really gets up and running. And so it will be a great contribution to American music and American culture. But let's be honest, I'm first and foremost the president of Monmouth University. Why am I so excited about this? Because of what this is going to do for Monmouth
Oh,
University.
it's gonna be tremendous. It's a
It's going to
whole.
just
It's
expose us to all
and
kinds of
it's
people.
in again what I think is going to add to jobs, and
Yes, yes.
it's the industries you're going to want to be in and around, and AI is going to play a big role in all of
Yeah,
it. But
yeah. Think
you're going
about
to be
how
at the
hot.
forefront of wanting to. You want to be around energy, right? Like we
Yeah.
said at the beginning, and you're
I
creating that energy.
I said just a quick anecdote. I met some of the senior executives at Netflix. Senator Gopal was kind enough to get us introduced so that I could meet them, and I'm sure they took the meeting with the president of the local university. I don't blame them if they don't know Monmouth. I mean, a lot of them are from California and
Yeah.
Colorado and Massachusetts. So I'm telling them about who we are and our program mix, and they're like, "Oh, wow." They visited our campus. They're like, "Wow, this is quite a campus." They're hearing about our Division I athletics program, and like I said, the fact that you know, we compete with Northeastern and Stony Brook and William and Mary. They're like, "Wow, this is like a real university." I'm telling them that we have one of the
It's funny
nation's
that you
top.
say that. I love that you say that
Yeah,
still.
he's
Like,
like,
like
so he says, like, I think he was like, "Oh wow," they were like, "Wow, okay, so you have one of the top music industry programs in the country. Wow, this is like a real university. Yeah, we could see partnering with you." And then I said, "Well, and you do know that we're the official home of the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music." And they were like, "Wait, what?" And I went in and explained that whole project and how it came to be and how Bruce Springsteen entrusted us with his legacy. Well, you could see, Jonathan, that the credibility of Monmouth University in their eyes just went like this.
no,
You know what I
totally.
mean?
Good for you. I mean,
So that's
listen,
all part of how
it all came together.
we support this too. And then if you think about that, 2 miles from where Netflix is building the largest television film production, I mean,
Amazing.
it's just great
What's
stuff.
also cool about Netflix, like Christian Giordano, who is also on my podcast,
Yes, yes,
he's the architect for this
yes.
project. They really want to work with people in the
In the
community, and
community, yeah, yeah,
like so. I think that's terrific. I think there's so many amazing things happening.
yeah,
It's fun that we're in such a as scary as change could be. I'm excited for all of it because I'm learning new things every day.
yeah,
I'm meeting
yeah,
new people, doing new things every day. So it keeps you alive, which keeps you vibrant.
yeah. Of
And I can
course.
see it in how you like. I love your energy and how you're explaining your
Yeah, thank
passion,
you.
and the fact that you did this and came on. I appreciate that too. So thank you so much for being here.
My
This was so
pleasure.
much fun, and I'm going to see you soon somewhere, hopefully.
I hope so. On a golf course, hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We said after
Thank
the
you.
podcast, we're going to get out there. So
Thank you,
thanks for being
Jonathan.
here.
It's a real honor for me to be on your podcast.
Patrick's story is such a great reminder that growth isn't linear. You don't become the president of a university or a leader of any kind without riding the waves, making the hard calls, and staying grounded in your values. The myth of overnight success, Patrick proves once again that it is a myth, and the real story is written in decades of commitment, clarity, and courage. Thanks for joining us, and as always, keep chasing the long game.